In a move that could redefine the war in Ukraine, President Biden has authorized the use of U.S.-supplied Army tactical missile systems, or ATACMS, inside Russia. This decision marks a significant escalation of American involvement in the conflict. For months, Ukraine has pleaded with the West for longer-range weapons. They argued these weapons were crucial to target Russian supply lines and command centers. Until now, the Biden administration had resisted, fearing further escalation with Russia. The recent deployment of North Korean troops to Ukraine has changed the calculus. It has raised the stakes of the conflict. This development has pushed the Biden administration to provide Ukraine with more powerful weaponry. The authorization of ATACMS represents a turning point in the war. It underscores the increasingly complex geopolitical landscape of the conflict. The decision to provide ATACMS has been met with mixed reactions. Ukrainian officials have praised the move. They see it as a vital step towards pushing back Russian forces. However, some Western allies have expressed concerns. They worry about the potential for escalation and a wider conflict with Russia. The Kremlin has condemned the move. They call it a dangerous provocation. The authorization of ATACMS is a high-stakes gamble by the Biden administration. It remains to be seen what impact these missiles will have on the battlefield and the future of the war in Ukraine. What is clear is that this decision marks a new phase in the conflict. It signals a growing willingness by the United States to provide Ukraine with the means to strike back at Russia on its own soil. The arrival of over 10,000 North Korean troops in Russia's Kursk region in October 2023 sent shockwaves through the international community. This unexpected development added a new layer of complexity to the already volatile situation in Ukraine. While North Korea and Russia have a history of cooperation, the deployment of troops marked a significant escalation of their involvement in the conflict. The presence of North Korean forces has raised concerns about the potential for a wider war. North Korea's military, known for its secrecy and unpredictability, adds an element of uncertainty to an already dangerous situation. The motives behind North Korea's decision to send troops remain unclear. However, analysts believe that Pyongyang is seeking to bolster its alliance with Moscow in exchange for economic and military aid. The deployment of North Korean troops has been met with condemnation from the international community. The United States and its allies have called on North Korea to withdraw its forces. They argue that their presence undermines regional stability and escalates the conflict. The situation in Kursk remains tense. The arrival of North Korean troops has heightened the risk of a direct confrontation between Russian and Ukrainian forces. The North Korean intervention in Ukraine underscores the global dimensions of the conflict. It highlights the complex web of alliances and rivalries that are at play. The presence of North Korean troops is a dangerous development. It has the potential to prolong the war and increase the suffering of the Ukrainian people. The international community must work together to address this new threat and find a peaceful solution to the crisis. The Biden administration's decision to authorize the use of ATACMS in Ukraine is driven by a number of strategic objectives. Firstly, the United States aims to counter Russia's planned offensive in the Kursk region. Russia has been massing troops and equipment in Kursk, signaling its intention to reclaim territory it lost to a Ukrainian counteroffensive in August 2023. The ATACMS, with their longer range and precision, could disrupt these preparations and weaken Russia's ability to launch a successful offensive. Secondly, the United States seeks to deter further North Korean military support for Russia. The arrival of North Korean troops in Kursk has raised concerns about the potential for Pyongyang to provide more substantial military assistance to Moscow. This assistance could include weapons, ammunition, and even troops. By demonstrating its willingness to provide Ukraine with advanced weaponry, the United States aims to send a clear message to North Korea. The message is that further involvement in the conflict will come at a cost. The Biden administration also hopes that providing Ukraine with ATACMS will bolster the morale of Ukrainian forces and demonstrate the United States' unwavering commitment to Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity. The war has taken a heavy toll on Ukraine's military and its people. The provision of advanced weaponry like ATACMS is seen as a way to boost morale and provide hope that Ukraine can ultimately prevail against Russian aggression. Finally, the decision to authorize ATACMS use is part of a broader U.S. strategy to contain Russian influence in Eastern Europe and beyond. The war in Ukraine is seen as a proxy conflict between the United States and Russia, with broader implications for global security and the rules-based international order. By supporting Ukraine, the United States aims to weaken Russia's military capabilities, deter further aggression, and maintain its own credibility on the world stage. The initial deployment of ATACMS missiles is expected to focus on the Kursk region, where the presence of both Russian and North Korean forces poses a significant threat to Ukraine's security. Ukrainian forces are expected to use the missiles to target Russian command and control centers, supply depots and troop concentrations in the region. By disrupting Russian preparations for a potential offensive, Ukraine hopes to relieve pressure on its own forces and prevent further territorial losses. However, the use of ATACMS is not limited to the Kursk region. Ukrainian officials have indicated that they may also use the missiles to strike targets deeper inside Russian territory, particularly in Crimea, which Russia illegally annexed in 2014. Such strikes would be highly symbolic and could potentially disrupt Russia's ability to sustain its military operations in southern Ukraine. The decision of where and how to deploy ATACMS will ultimately rest with Ukrainian military commanders, who will need to weigh the strategic benefits of each strike against the potential risks of escalation. Striking targets deeper inside Russia carries a greater risk of provoking a harsh response from Moscow. This response could include attacks on critical infrastructure or even the use of tactical nuclear weapons. The deployment of ATACMS is a complex and delicate operation. It requires careful coordination between the United States and Ukraine. The United States will provide Ukraine with the missiles and the necessary training and intelligence support. However, it is ultimately up to Ukraine to decide how and when to use these weapons. The United States is keen to avoid being seen as directly involved in attacks on Russian soil. Section 5. Impact Assessment. A potential shift in momentum, but no guarantees. U.S. officials believe that the deployment of ATACMS missiles has the potential to significantly impact the course of the war in Ukraine. The missiles' longer range and precision could provide Ukraine with a much-needed advantage on the battlefield, particularly in the strategically important Kursk region. By striking key Russian targets, Ukrainian forces could disrupt Russia's offensive capabilities and potentially force Moscow to the negotiating table. However, it is important to note that the ATACMS are not a silver bullet and are unlikely to single-handedly turn the tide of the war. Russia still possesses a significant military advantage over Ukraine in terms of manpower, equipment and resources. Moscow has also shown a willingness to absorb heavy losses and to escalate its military operations, even in the face of setbacks. The impact of the ATACMS will also depend on a number of factors, including the number of missiles provided, the effectiveness of Ukrainian targeting, and Russia's ability to adapt its tactics and defenses. Russia has already begun taking steps to counter the threat posed by ATACMS, including strengthening its air defenses and dispersing its forces. While the deployment of ATACMS represents a significant development in the war, it is important to maintain realistic expectations about its potential impact. The missiles could provide Ukraine with a tactical advantage and may help to deter further Russian aggression. However, a decisive victory for either side remains elusive, and the conflict is likely to continue for the foreseeable future. Section 6. A History of Aggression. From ATACMS in Ukraine to Russian strikes on civilian infrastructure. The authorization of ATACMS for use inside Russia is just the latest chapter in a long and bloody conflict. The war in Ukraine has been characterized by relentless violence and brutality, with both sides accused of committing war crimes. Russia's invasion of Ukraine in February 2022 marked a turning point in European security, shattering decades of relative peace and stability. Since the invasion, Russia has been accused of indiscriminate attacks on civilian targets including hospitals, schools, and residential areas. The use of cluster munitions and thermobaric weapons has also been widely condemned. Ukraine, for its part, has been accused of using landmines and of mistreating prisoners of war. The war has had a devastating impact on the Ukrainian people. Millions have been displaced from their homes, and thousands have been killed or injured. The country's infrastructure has been decimated, and its economy is in ruins. The conflict has also had a profound impact on the global order, leading to soaring energy prices, food shortages, and heightened tensions between Russia and the West. The authorization of ATACMS for use inside Russia marks a significant escalation of the conflict. It remains to be seen how Russia will respond, but the potential for further escalation is high. The international community must continue to pressure both sides to end the fighting and to find a peaceful resolution to the conflict. Section 7. Political turmoil, Biden's departure and the uncertainty of Trump's return. The decision to authorize ATACMS comes at a time of significant political turmoil in the United States. President Biden's term in office is coming to an end, and former President Donald Trump, who has expressed admiration for Russian President Vladimir Putin, and has been critical of U.S. support for Ukraine, is considered a frontrunner for the Republican nomination in the 2024 presidential election. Trump's potential return to the White House has raised concerns among Ukrainian officials and their allies about the future of U.S. support for Ukraine. During his presidency, Trump was impeached by the House of Representatives for withholding military aid to Ukraine in exchange for investigating his political rivals. While he was acquitted by the Senate, the episode raised serious questions about his commitment to Ukraine's security. Trump has repeatedly claimed that he could end the war in Ukraine within 24 hours if elected president. However, he has refused to say how he would achieve this, and his critics have accused him of being willing to make concessions to Russia at Ukraine's expense. Trump's stance on Ukraine is popular with some segments of the Republican base, who are wary of U.S. involvement in foreign conflicts and who view Russia as a potential ally against China. The political uncertainty in the United States has added another layer of complexity to the already volatile situation in Ukraine. It remains to be seen how the 2024 presidential election will impact U.S. policy towards Ukraine, but the stakes for Kyiv are high. A Trump victory could have significant implications for the course of the war and the future of Ukraine's independence. Section 8. Ukraine's gamble. High stakes in the battle for Kursk and beyond. For Ukraine, the authorization of ATACMS for use inside Russia represents a high-stakes gamble. Kyiv hopes that the missiles will give its forces a much-needed edge on the battlefield and help to deter further Russian aggression. However, there is also a risk that the move could backfire, provoking a harsh response from Moscow and potentially escalating the conflict. Ukraine is fighting for its survival as an independent nation. The war has already cost the lives of thousands of Ukrainians and has displaced millions more. The country's infrastructure has been devastated, and its economy is in ruins. Despite the enormous challenges, Ukraine has shown remarkable resilience and determination in the face of Russian aggression. The battle for Kursk is of strategic importance to both sides. For Russia, retaking the region would be a symbolic victory and would help to secure its hold on eastern Ukraine. For Ukraine, holding on to Kursk is crucial to preventing further Russian advances and to maintaining its territorial integrity. The outcome of the battle for Kursk could have a significant impact on the course of the war. Ukraine's decision to use ATACMS inside Russia is a risky one, but it is a gamble that Kyiv feels it has to take. The stakes are simply too high for Ukraine to allow Russia to continue its aggression unchecked. The international community must continue to support Ukraine's right to defend itself and to hold Russia accountable for its actions. Section 9. A war transformed. The unpredictable future of the conflict. The war in Ukraine has already had a profound impact on the world, and its consequences will continue to be felt for years to come. The conflict has shattered the illusion of peace and stability in Europe, exposed the fragility of the rules-based international order, and highlighted the dangers of resurgent nationalism and authoritarianism. The authorization of ATACMS for use inside Russia marks a dangerous escalation of the conflict, and its consequences are difficult to predict. However, one thing is certain: the war in Ukraine has entered a new and even more unpredictable phase. The conflict has already claimed the lives of tens of thousands of people, displaced millions more, and caused billions of dollars in damage. It has also led to a sharp increase in global food and energy prices, exacerbating existing inequalities and fueling social unrest. The war has also had a profound impact on the geopolitical landscape. It has strengthened the alliance between the United States and its NATO allies, but it has also pushed Russia closer to China, creating a new axis of authoritarian power. The conflict has also highlighted the growing importance of non-state actors, such as the Wagner Group, a Russian private military company that has been heavily involved in the fighting in Ukraine. The future of the war in Ukraine remains uncertain. However, one thing is clear: the conflict has already transformed the world in profound ways, and its consequences will continue to be felt for generations to come. The international community must work together to find a peaceful solution to the conflict and to address the underlying issues that led to the outbreak of war.